Hello and welcome back. I have returned. I'm back from my vacation and I'm still exhausted and a bit sick, so hopefully my voice will not be too terrible today. The trip back home was such a mess. From multiple delays and cancellations to an old lady that insisted that my phone was killing her due to its 5G radiation or frequencies or whatever. It was definitely a weird encounter that makes a good story for the future. Anyway, during my 2-week vacation, many exciting things have happened with Aion. Let's cover the most exciting news today about Aion2. The second Aion2 livestream happened a couple days ago. In the 1.5-hour livestream we saw many new things. First, they show us some feedback of the FGT, and that isn't really something new, because most of it had been leaked by the testers, but obviously without in-game footage. So overall, they were impressed by the visuals, they enjoyed the flight system, and they especially praised the PvE aspects of the game. Then they wanted to talk about the 4 main aspects of the game: solo PvE, group PvE, PvP, and side content. The solo PvE has 4 different categories. The Nightmare Dungeon, where you encounter a boss. This boss has up to 10 stages where he gets more and more difficult each time. Depending on which race you choose to play, you will encounter different bosses during your story playthrough as Asmodeans and as Ilios. However, that is different with the Nightmare Dungeon. Here you can encounter and experience the bosses of the opposing race. This Nightmare Dungeon does include a ranking system for players that thrive for this kind of challenge. The next solo PvE category are sealed dungeons. These dungeons can be found in different places on the map, and they do not only include combat, but also puzzle elements. They do recommend to clear these dungeons if you happen to come across them. At the moment there are around 60 different sealed dungeons for each race. Here they also mention that back then you could only really fight if you were in the opposing race's territory after you had gone through a rift. Now you can do much more. As an example, they say that you can enter these sealed dungeons in the opposing faction's territory. The third category are garrisons. Basically small camps of enemies that you can kill and gain a reward afterwards. We do not know any details about it yet, but we had similar stuff in the first Aion game. In the fourth solo PvE category are awakening battles. This is basically a dungeon where you fight one boss after another, until you kill the last boss and finish it. All of this is timed, meaning the faster you are, the better the rewards will be. Let's get to the group PvE now. There are also 4 activities here. The first one are expeditions. It's basically a group dungeon with up to 4 players. The prime example for this was the Fire Temple, which was already shown in the first Aion2 livestream, and we will see more of it a bit later. These dungeons have 2 difficulty modes: Expedition and Conquest. Expedition is more of a training mode or easy mode, where you can learn the boss's mechanics without being punished too hard. Well, the Conquest mode is the normal way or hard mode to the dungeon, after you learn the mechanics of the boss. The second activity is called Transcendence. Transcendence is still a group dungeon with up to 4 players, but it has a unique feature. Meaning if you and your team work well together and reach the goals of the current difficulty, you can advance to the next difficulty and so on. There are 4 difficulty options for it. There are also many factors to this, like clear time, number of kills, the amount of bosses that had been killed, how long your team survived, and much more. All of this decides your ranking, and with that you will receive more rewards the higher you rank. The third activity is Subjugation. It's a dungeon where a different random effect is present every time you enter. There's also a limit of how many times you and your group members can die, so you have to help each other to prevent deaths. And the fourth group activity is the Sanctuary. This is an 8-player dungeon and will be most likely the endgame content for the initial release. They initially planned to make it 16 or even 24 players, but they decided against it for now. which I think is good, because the more players, the less responsibility is tied to the individual players, which is not good for endgame content in my opinion. There's not much more to say about this, and instead we move on to the PvP section. I will only slightly talk about this as I did not go into too much detail here. There will be a 1v1 and 4v4 arena. There will also be battlefields, but they are different to the usual Dredgen style PvP we had in the original Aion game. In this new battlefield, both sides have the goal to push the cargo towards their team's zone. This is known from games like Overwatch, for example. I mean, I'm not necessarily against it, but I do wonder how it will play out in an MMORPG. Either way, I do like that they dare to try new things. That is very good. Next up are the rifts, with which you can travel to the opposing faction's territory. This is already very well known from the original Aion game. And lastly, we have the Abyss with open world PvP. They don't really say much about it yet and instead move on to the side content. This only has 2 activities. The first one is a daily dungeon, and they explain it as a light-hearted hack and slash type of mode, meaning it is similar to the Chaos Dungeons of Lost Ark, which I think is great. The second activity is the Shugo Festa, which basically includes multiple minigames. They've collected 10 minigames up to this point, and they will happen on a fixed schedule. The fixed schedule kind of worries me, because I hope they mean every 30 minutes or so and not every evening at 6 PM or nonsense like that. I don't want to wait for a specific time to play a minigame, you know? So I hope they take some inspiration from the Gold Saucer in Final Fantasy XIV. They also mentioned that after every season, they will eliminate the unpopular minigames and replace them with new ones. That's a very good thought, and I hope they stick to this. After explaining all of this, they finally started showing in-game footage. Starting with the character creator. Now on the right side here we can see some character presets, and I gotta say they look very versatile. I like that. They show many different presets, explain more settings with the lighting, and then they go deeper into character creator. I personally won't go much deeper into this for now. It simply looks great, and I'm sure we all can create very beautiful characters with it. Let me show you a few good moments. Now this is the first view as he enters the world with his character. My first thought was, what the fuck is that inventory? But right after that I have to say I like the armor. It is very detailed and looks very nice. Here we also see the Free Goddess statue that we discussed in the in-depth video about Aion2. Okay, screw what they were talking about and screw their character. Do you see the guard walking in the background? That's the armor I want. That's all I wish for. As previously mentioned in my videos, the weapons of the characters appear out of nowhere, manifesting out of thin air. There are also pets that can carry the player, basically increasing their move speed. And if you get off, the pet will transform back to a smaller version of itself and follow you. They fly around a bit and mention that this giant structure up here, or ship, is a Legion house. There all the guild members can assemble together. Sadly they did not show that and we simply moved on. They then showed the new menu where you see your character level, your item level, your activities, quest journal, and much more. They also went into the shop, and I gotta say, they did our Shugos dirty. They look different. Anyway, in the store we see a couple of things like resurrection stones, which were already received fairly poorly during the FGT, but let's not talk too much about that. We also see a black dragon pad and stuff like cube expansions. And here it is already a big improvement that they actually tell you that you have 0 out of 20 possible cube expansions. This was a huge problem in the original game, because I know so many people that bought cube expansions from the shop, and then even though they spent the money, they couldn't use it because they couldn't further expand their inventory. But the game didn't tell them that, and so they just wasted money. It's just a small thing, but it would definitely be infuriating if that happened to you. Let's not talk much more about the shop. Let's move on to the dungeon. Here is the dungeon window. Here you see multiple dungeons and as which role you want to apply for them. On the left side you see multiple different dungeons listed, the 2 most known ones being Draupnir and the Fire Temple. For example, for the Fire Temple you need at least level 43 at an item level of 1000. Then you can enter the dungeon with up to 3 other players. He enters and immediately adds not only a fire spirit, but also Rotan itself. They clear through the dungeon and arrive in front of Crowmeat. They sadly skip the cutscene, but the first sentence of Crowmeat was, "Robston, I'm trapped in the flames of unquenchable desire." I love my lore. Alright, as for Crowmeat, she is now a melee opponent with 2 swords. She dashes around a lot and uses many AoEs during the fight. Below her health bar you can see a thin blue bar. This is the stagger meter, meaning Crowmeat gets stunned for a few seconds when it is depleted. This was also used in, for example, Lost Ark, and I think it's a good system to have. You lower the stagger bar by simply doing damage, and some skills, and especially disables like stuns, lower it even more. So even stuns have a place to be used, and they are not just a waste of time, like with bosses in the original Aion game. Once the bar is depleted, Crowmeat will fall to her knees and stop attacking for 5 seconds. During this time, you and your group members also deal additional damage to Crowmeat. And now comes the even more interesting part. At around 50 to 60% HP, Crowmeat will fly into the air and shoot out walls of fire towards your group. You have to dodge them or you will take significant damage and ultimately die. This will repeat at around 30% HP of Crowmeat, but this time with mirror images of Crowmeat, which shoot 3 long lines of fire additionally at your group. The guy playing apparently tried his best to die, because he took every hit he possibly could, but his healer ruined it by healing him and saving him numerous times. Anyway, after Crowmeat died, a loot window pops up, where you can choose if you want to roll on stuff or not. What's also interesting is that all these bosses, including Crowmeat, will leave behind ether that you can gather after they died. Now, additionally to the direct boss rewards, there will also be a chest that spawns. Here you can see which bosses have been killed in the dungeon or which ones have been skipped. You need a ticket to open the chests, but they haven't said more about it. I think it's just the entry limit, meaning you can probably enter it even if you don't have an entrance anymore, simply to help out others, but you will not gain any reward. This is not confirmed, just a random guess of mine. The preview of armor and weapons looks amazing though, because it is full screen and not that tiny little window we had in the original Aion game. They also mentioned that the UI is still in development. They already work on finishing it. While they do mention that there are no transformations, they also mention that they work on candies. That's not good. Towards the end of the stream, they once again mentioned that they will release Aion2 at the end of this year for Korea and Taiwan. No confirmation about the exact date yet, but they do confirm that it will be this year, and they also confirm that they will very soon confirm the exact date of when it will release. In the next stream they will show more about the PvP and the mobile interaction with Aion2. This next livestream will be in September. And with that, the Korean broadcast of the second Aion2 livestream ends. In the Taiwan broadcast we can see a bit more of the environment and a few more pets from other players. And we see how it actually looks like when you die and when you get resurrected. So let me conclude a few things we saw today. The dodging and movement is very cool. The Fire Temple and Crow Meat are both nicely designed and it looks like it will be a lot of fun to play. The new business model will be mainly focused on battle passes and skins. I don't believe that entirely, because I'm pretty sure that there will be ways to use pay to win, even though they claim that there won't be any gacha or pay to win system. I honestly hope that I'm wrong about this, and that they truly don't have pay to win stuff, but you know. The character creator is amazing, and I can't wait to see what people come up with these many options to adjust. Gathering and crafting will once again be important, not like in the last couple of years in Aion, where it wasn't really used by anyone anymore. And that's pretty much it. Now what can we anticipate in the next few days, weeks and months? First, Aion2 will make an appearance at Gamescom in Germany. This happens mid-August and we do not know what exactly they will show. Hopefully a new trailer. In September will be the next Aion2 livestream, where they show more about PvP and about the mobile interaction with the game. Towards the end of the year, aiming at November, Aion2 will release in Korea and in Taiwan. And mid-2026, the rest of us will also get the possibility to play Aion2, with the official release in EU and NA. Just as a reminder, Aion2 will release on PC and mobile on launch. The console launch will be after that, so there are no real plans there for now, because it's still so far away. That's it for now. This is just a brief overview of what was shown and talked about. If you want a detailed list, check out the Aion2 community Discord. They have listed all the details there. I got a lot to catch up on, so we'll see you soon in my next video. Bye.